to invite to the podium Rita Madeira from IEA to make her opening remarks. I just reversed the order so that we have IEA, then we come to the government of Kenya. Most welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. What an honor. I have to say that I have a tough act to follow after my executive director gave the news this morning, but I'll try my best. And I'll start by saying, good morning, Nairobi. It's such a pleasure to be here. We've heard many Swahili words these 2 days. I think I'll try one that we haven't heard yet, and that I feel, Nairobi nakupenda. So today we are in Nairobi, and I'm supposed to take you on a journey to Paris. So it's a time, travel, and geographical travel. But before I take you to last week and what happened in Paris in the first IEA Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa, I'll also take you back 20 years when the IEA started tracking data on energy access, and not just electricity, but also clean cooking that brings us here today. Data, as we've heard this morning, is at the heart of the IEA, and without data, we navigate, we are lost. We don't know where to go if we don't know where we are. So after all of these years of collecting data on clean cooking, on energy access in general, and focusing specifically on clean cooking, what we saw was that there's great progress that was made in emerging economies, especially in Asia, but the African continent has lagged behind, and this is quite worrisome. We know that the issue of clean cooking is a major, or a lack of access to clean cooking is a major health, development, gender, environment, and climate issue. And we know that the solutions are available, the technologies are available. But it's a topic that has struggled to get the attention that it deserves. It has struggled to get the traction, to get the capital, to get the focus. And despite all of the great work that has been done by all of the partners of the IEA working on this space, and some of them are here today, the Clean Cooking Alliance, the Modern Energy Cooking Services Program, SE for All, among others, World Health Organization, it is still an issue. And the figure that is now, I think, on top of everyone's mind, 1 billion people without access on the continent, is quite striking. And as my executive director said this morning, that is 4 out of 5 people, 4 out of 5 families. So this is basically to take you to the story of last week. And the issue from the IEA perspective started getting momentum last year. We published a report, a vision for clean cooking access for all, together with the African Development Bank. And then at COP28, we held an event together with the African Development Bank, with our partners from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Senegal, from the African Union, and under the leadership of Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan from Tanzania, things started moving, and my executive director joined forces with Her Excellency, with the Prime Minister of Norway, with the President of the African Development Bank to co-host this summit in Paris. And the road to the summit was long. We held over 150 consultations with experts, with development partners, with governments, with industry, and we organized an expert workshop in Paris in March. And we had about 70 people in the room and 30 online, so around 100 people. And at the time, it was said that this was the largest gathering to discuss clean cooking ever. Little did we know, because fast forward to the 14th of May, and you know that IEA, we love numbers, so I'm just going to give some numbers to you. And we had over 1,000 delegates join us in Paris last week. We had, of which 55 governments, 4 heads of government, and 23 ministers attend. We also had high-level representatives from industry, from our development partners, from the international organizations, philanthropies, and civil society. It was a very inclusive discussion. It was a very inclusive gathering, and countless people make countless connections that we hope will help move the needle on this, because we know that on the sidelines of these gatherings, that's where the action happens, right? We speak and we say very important things, but the action happens on the sidelines. And they also heard the number this morning. So the three key objectives of the summit was, first and foremost, to gather the international attention, to gain momentum on this critical issue. And 1 week after, we are here discussing this topic again, and also to mobilize financial commitments to clean cooking access on the continent. And you heard the number this morning. I'll say it again because, as I said, we love numbers at the IEA, and we mobilized 2.2 billion United States dollars in new announcements from public and private sector sources. We also worked very closely with our partners at the African governments along in the road leading up to the summit to discuss policy options to support the development of clean cooking programs and the acceleration of clean cooking programs. And we're very happy that 12 African governments were on board and publicly announced and endorsed making clean cooking a priority for them, and also put in place policies that support the acceleration of these programs. And we had more than 130 delegations endorse the high-level declaration. That was one of the key outcomes of the summit. It's also available on our website. And all of these key outcomes were also captured in what we're calling the chair's summary, that is also available on our website, and includes a list of the commitments and the announcements made at the summit. So here we are, 1 week later. And I'm very excited to be here with you. So we're back in Nairobi. We left Paris behind. And so we continue the momentum, we continue the discussion. And today we have an excellent panel of experts to carry us through. So I'll say this again, 1 billion people, that is the number that should mobilize our action, because those are the lives that we can potentially change by accelerating clean cooking access on the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rita. Can you also add a round of applause for Rita? And thank you to IEA. As a matter of fact, the milestones that we see today are a manifestation of a future which is going to be clean. It's now my pleasure to invite Engineer Isaac Kiva, who is the Secretary for Renewable Energy at the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. I was to start by saying excellencies, but I think the excellencies are in a round table, unless there is one who is still around or aspiring here. But it's a good title. We are getting there. So, excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I will just go through the structured notes because I know we are having a panel discussion, and one of our experts will be distilling some of the things I'm going to talk about. But the clean cooking challenge remains an unresolved problem in Kenya, with 68.5% of the population still relying on polluting fuels and inefficient technologies to cook their meals. The use of inefficient stoves is a leading cause of indoor pollution, which has devastating effects on the health of women and children, and contributes to loss of lives attributed to pneumonia among children under 5 years. This message was reiterated in the morning by the ED and also His Excellency the Deputy President. We have made significant progress in doubling the proportion of Kenyans using clean cooking from 15% to currently 31% over the decade. But in order to address this deficit situation, we have set a very ambitious goal of reaching universal access to modern energy and to clean cooking by 2028. And we have various measures in place to help us to be able to reach there. We now have clean cooking as a priority development sector, as stipulated in several documents, including the Integrated National Energy Plan, which is going to be the plan for all our energy development, from power generation, transmission, distribution, clean cooking, energy access, energy efficiency, everything in energy. We want to collapse all that into an integrated national energy plan. It is legislated in law, it is there in our policy, and so it's something good for us to do. We're also doing the review of our energy policy, 2018, and in it we are also going to be inculcating issues about clean cooking. In fact, in our thematic working groups, we have 11 of them, and one of them is specifically dealing with clean cooking, just to show how we have raised the profile of clean cooking. And the strategy for achieving this universal access to efficient clean cooking is embedded in the Kenya National Cooking Transition Strategy. This is a very new document. We just had the PS and CS sign it a week or days to the Clean Cooking Summit. It is now available in our website. We had thought we could launch it publicly on Monday, but there are so many things. We're going to plan for a public launch. But this document, which we have developed together with our partners, many of whom are here. I've seen people from GIZ, AFD, France, UK Pact, CCG, and MEX. So we came together, but it's not only those. We had a participatory consultative process in formulating this strategy. And the strategy has an outlook that by 2028, our cooking energy mix will comprise 50% LPG, 30% bioethanol, 10% electric cooking, and then the rest, the other clean cooking like briquettes, biogas, and the rest. We plan to utilize this strategy to implement a 5-point action agenda so as to achieve this universal access by 2028. This 5-point agenda, one is to leverage existing public institutions as demand points for clean fuel to bridge the supply gap for clean cooking solutions. The second one is to leverage carbon financing and other opportunities geared towards bridging the affordability gap. And the third one is on enhancing local production of clean fuels and manufacture of efficient technologies for domestic and export market. And by doing this, we'll also be supporting green industrialization, and we are then able to lower the cost of these appliances. The fourth one is to increase awareness and promote behavior change. And I know the panel maybe will be having a few tips on how to do that. And the fifth one is to establish mechanisms to track implementation progress. The strategy estimates the total cost of implementation to be US dollars 435 million. So what we got from Paris is 2.2 billion. It's more than we need. If we can just get this out of the 2.2 billion, Rita will be home and dry. This is expected to translate to health, time, and environmental benefits valued at 240 million annually. So you invest 435 and you get benefits 240 million. This, in simple mathematics, is a payback period of less than 2 years. This is a very good investment. We also envisage the establishment of a clean cooking fund. Our situation could be similar in many developing nations. So I'm only talking about Kenya, but could be so in Ghana, in Senegal, in sub-Saharan Africa. We will therefore require to be deliberate in making policies that are facilitative for private sector participation, as well as mobilize substantial financing required. We participated in the recent Clean Cooking Summit held on 14th May, where we were told 2.2 billion was pledged. And this is focused on providing clean cooking access to more than 1 billion people in Africa who currently lack it, thus addressing one of the world's most persistent and deep-seated inequalities. We reiterate our commitment to champion and accelerate adoption and use of clean cooking solutions globally, regionally, and nationally. And even regional, we are enhancing our cooperation. We are part of the East Africa community. We are also part of the EACRI, East Africa Center for Energy Efficiency, for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, and the executive director, the executive director is here with us, Godi. So it's bringing together several countries together, And through that center, we want to be able to do things, to be able to refine our policies, to be able to refine our plans, so that together we can be able to move as a region and also nationally. We therefore encourage partners and well-wishers to support our efforts to mobilize resources for implementation. To our esteemed delegates, that is you now, we encourage you to be ambassadors for clean cooking in your respective jurisdictions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Engineer Kiva. We appreciate the words of encouragement and, of course, outlining what Kenya is doing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to move to another segment of the panel discussion. And here in this panel, we're going to be looking at the global perspectives of clean cooking. And so as we do that, it is exciting to see milestones that have been achieved so far. Part of my life had been championing for clean cooking. So when I see the milestones that we have achieved, it is very thrilling. I get excited. I'm happy to now bring on board our panelists. And please, when I call you, you will move to the podium, take your position. The sitting arrangement is per your choice as you move there. So let me introduce Dr. Faith Wandera Odongo. Faith is a Director of Renewable Energy at the Ministry of Energy. Please take your seat at the podium. Sorry, I notice people have to walk some distance, but it's also good exercise. Then I also want to introduce to you, and if I don't pronounce the name correctly, please pardon me, Xia Yuan, Vice Director and Associate Professor, Energy Labeling Center, China, at the China National Institute of Standardization. Most welcome, Xia. It's also my pleasure to invite George Kyriakarakos. Pardon if I also don't pronounce the name correctly. George is an energy efficiency expert for power and agriculture. And then I also want to invite to the front, the podium, Professor Israel da Silva, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation at Strathmore University. Thank you all very much, and we immediately get into the discussion. So I want to start with the Faith, Dr. Faith Odongo, and the question is, this is a general question we want you to address. That last week, and in fact this is a question for all of you, just 1 minute for everybody to make a reflection. Last week we had the IEA summit that Rita has talked about, where a pledge was made to make clean cooking a priority and enhance efforts towards achieving universal access for all. So I start with Faith, Dr. Faith Odongo. Could you share what your organization is currently focusing on to drive clean cooking access? Faith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning to everybody. In the Ministry of Energy, we have been doing quite a bit of work on clean cooking, and it all started way back in I think before 2019, because in 2019 we managed to launch the clean cooking strategy, during which we announced a key goal that guides the cooking sector, where we said Kenya needs to achieve 100% access to clean cooking by 2028. And since setting that goal, a lot of things have been happening one after the other. And currently, we are focusing on prioritizing clean cooking in major planning documents. A bit of it has been said by Engineer Kiva when he was addressing you, but I would just like to bring in the aspect of the Energy Transition Investment Plan, which is a key planning document in the energy sector, which has now mainstreamed clean cooking as a key aspect of energy development. Now, the other document is the Integrated National Energy Plan, INEP. And INEP is also something that has been cascaded to the county level. We need counties to respond to clean cooking issues, and therefore we have sensitized, we are in the process of sensitizing counties to respond to clean cooking, because this action happens at the grassroots level. So if we do it at national level and we don't sensitize the grassroots level, then we are bound to fail. The other aspect that we are doing is in the policy we have mainstreamed, as mentioned by Engineer Kiva, we have the Clean Cooking Thematic Working Group, and it doubles up together with the Bioenergy Working Group, in the sense that they are working on key policy issues that are affecting the uptake of clean cooking in the country, and bringing these policy issues forward for action and to just generally improve the enabling environment. So other than the planning documents, there are other aspects of clean cooking that we are dealing with. The National Cooking Transition Strategy has already been mentioned by Engineer Kiva when he stood up. He mentioned the 5-point action agenda, which is going to guide the process of clean cooking in our country between now and 2028. Then we also have very specific strategies on the specific fuels and technologies. On LPG, we have the Enhanced LPG Uptake Plan. It's a strategy which is at the highest level. And under that, we are looking at enhancing the access to LPG in public schools and also at household level. We also have the electric cooking strategy, which is under development. It's almost finalized. The electric cooking strategy is trying to bridge the gap between clean cooking access and the electricity access. As you well know, Kenya has a very high access to electricity at 75%, but only 1% of our people are using electricity for cooking. So this is a very big gap that we need to bridge and encourage people to use electricity for cooking. Then the other thing we are doing is raising.
Faith, we are still coming back to the details.
Okay.
So let's put a comma.
Okay, fine.
And want to move to Zia. The same question, could you share with us what your organization is currently focusing on to drive clean cooking access?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to have me here. I work for the China National Institute of Standardization. From 2008, CINIS is committed to supporting the government in developing and upgrading energy efficiency standards and labeling programs. Currently, it has covered the household and the commercial gas cookers and gas water heaters, and also the electric rice cookers. In recent years, in tackling the climate change, China has set an ambitious goal about the non-fossil energy consumption proportion. That's 25% by 2025 and 80% by 2060. So electrification of cookers in the long run can lead to emission reduction as the power shifts to renewables. So under this background, with the support of Allergy Foundation, we are carrying out a project about the electrification transformation roadmap for China. So we are identifying the barriers to the electrification, and we are developing the roadmap for electrification in alignment with the development of renewable energies. So this is the current focus. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, you notice this panel is is gender balanced. I've just noted we are so well balanced. And I want to move now to George. Allow me to use that first name. George, kindly also share with us what your organization is doing to drive clean cooking access.
First of all, does the microphone work? Can you hear me? Now you can hear me. That's great. First of all, I'm very, very happy to be here and be part of this panel. And I want to share with you that the African Union and the African Energy Commission, AFREC in particular, are very active in engaging in approaches to advance clean cooking across Africa. AFREC is currently focusing several key areas concerning clean cooking. First of all, they are developing policy and strategy documents. Currently, the African Union's energy efficiency strategy and action plan is almost finalized, and also the African Union's energy transition strategy is under development, which both include clean cooking as one of the topics. And let me highlight that these documents will eventually be forwarded for adoption by the heads of state and government of the African Union. Of course, AFREC is also promoting the adoption of minimum energy performance standards and energy labels for cooking appliances. And I want to highlight here that this effort does not only stop at appliances targeted to the electrical grid or to specific situations, but it has also focused on off-grid scenarios, since the rural areas are most in need of such solutions. Of course, capacity building and technical assistance to the regional and national levels is one of the key activities of AFREC also regarding clean cooking. And as part of the African Union, it also plays its role in organizing and providing financial and technical support for the implementation of clean cooking programs across the continent. Finally, I want to highlight that AFREC is also the key continental institution concerning data collection and monitoring at the continental level. They're advancing this field, and they are trying to collect more detailed information as time goes by in order to provide both the continental level but also the regional and national levels with data for more informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We do appreciate what AFREC is doing to mobilize support for cooking, among other things, in the continent. Now let me come to Professor, and I know, Professor, you're representing the academia and the research institutions. Kindly share briefly, in a very short while, what is it that your organization is doing to drive clean cooking?
Right. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the organizers, IEA, for this platform. Yeah, I feel quite strong seeing such good heads listening to me. Yeah. So, yes, I am a professor in energy. I am the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation in Strathmore University. I'm also a chair holder for UNESCO Chair on Climate Change Resilience and Sustainability. And about 2 years ago, I was invited to join a group called CEET, Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition. So it's an idea of a good friend of ours called Jeffrey Sachs, isn't it, in Columbia University. And then we report to Guterres, to the General Secretary. So, I feel good, you know, that you say the same thing, but because of your platform is somehow wider or bigger, you make more impact. Yeah, and this something bring me to the second idea that I want to tell you is that we are committed to results, and this is very important. There is a secret. If you want to have impact, which is long-lasting and wide, you have to have 3 partners. You have to have 3 stakeholders, not 2, not 1. You have to have academia, because we do R&D, we do project development. We have to have government. It says, no, government, oh, don't bring them because they are... Shh, wait. If you don't have the government, you go nowhere. Because who can make beautiful and good regulations and policies to control and organize the development in a country? It's the government. Who can give us tax exemptions? It's the government. If myself as a person, I do myself some tax exemption, I go to jail, you know. But now Kiva, he is praised because he says no VAT for electric mobility, for instance, or for an electric cooker. You see, so this is very important. Triple helix: government, private sector, and academia. What do I say about the private sector? Is that unless you have them, you have to go back to the drawing board, because someone has to be making money. Actually, making money is an ugly name for sustainability, you know? Like Safaricom, very sustainable, isn't it? Yes, so this is important. Keep in mind the triple helix. Who are you? Oh, I'm academia. Where is your private sector? Where is your government? If you don't have, you don't get action. And if you don't get action, you become not useful. It's like this group of people whom we know exist, called NATO. Not the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, no. NATO stands for no action, talk only. Oh yes, we shall do it. Yes, I'll send you. Oh yes, we are. And nothing, you know. So a gram of action is more worth than 1 ton of So that's why, yes, we have to get things done like that. So, yeah, and then a part of the triple helix and NATO, I say that we need to build capacity, and that one you will also do, yeah. And that one we do together. We get private, LIWA, link in industry with academia, we pick the government, IPRA, for instance, and then academia. And we train people. We have trained 5,000 plus engineers and technicians on solar design, installation, and maintenance. And I stop here. I like talking.
Thank you. Thank you so much indeed. I know Professor has a lot also to give, but thank you for pointing out the triple helix, that you need a multi-stakeholder approach to this agenda of cooking. Now I want us to go a little bit more specific in terms of looking at regional perspectives, just to get a feel of what is going on from the panelists. I start again with Dr. Faith Odongo, and you have alluded to this. The Kenya National Cooking Transition Strategy is the first of its kind, and it cuts across the various clean cooking fuels and technologies, and connecting cooking into the broader policy landscape. Now, we'd like to hear from you in a minute. What does energy efficiency play in this strategy?
Thank you, Paul. Again, in terms of efficiency, I don't think we can separate the discussions about efficiency and clean cooking. The two go hand in hand. And when we look at the kind of situation we have in Kenya, we have that reliance on firewood, which is inefficient. We are using inefficient technologies to burn firewood. And therefore, there's a lot of pollution that is happening in our households. So what the strategy has done is to focus on promoting both efficient fuels and technologies. And when we talk about efficient fuels, we are talking about fuels that emit less, and they also cook faster. They also have high energy content. So all these are factors of efficiency, and without this, you really cannot talk about the clean cooking aspect. That is what qualifies the clean cooking to be efficient. So in terms of targets, we are looking at facilitating our households to acquire at least a clean cooking device and use clean fuel as a bare minimum in the first few years by 2028. If they can do this, to use that as a primary cooking technology within their households, then we are looking at achieving that target that we have set for ourselves. And of course, beyond 28, what we would like to see is our country improving their stacks. You know, there's a lot of stacking in the cooking sector. You have so many cooking technologies, but how many of them are clean? After acquiring your first primary clean technology and fuel, then we look towards you getting, if you want a complete stack, then we would expect that the whole of that stack to be clean. Then the other thing that the strategy does is to recognize the contribution of clean cooking to the the reduction in emission of greenhouse gases. So when we talk about efficiency, our cooking should not be giving us a lot of emissions. So we are talking about reducing the emissions by 11% of the baseline scenario of the 143 metric ton target for Kenya. Then we are also looking at reducing the number of hours, time saving. Efficiency is time saving. And for each household, we are looking at savings amounting to about 790 hours per household per year. That works to about 33 days for a household. So if we can save 33 days for each household in this country, then I think we can be said to be moving forward in terms of development in clean cooking. The other thing we are looking at is efficiency will reduce the unsustainable harvest of firewood by the equivalent of about 466,000 hectares, which is about 11% of the 4.2 million hectares that is now the current forest cover in Kenya. So the strategy is sensitive to efficiency, and for us, we are seeing if we practice clean cooking, then the efficiency that we are targeting within the strategy is going to help us to achieve better health, more trees, and less emissions, which is responding to the needs of the net zero that we are targeting globally. So we are generally contributing to the global goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. And I want to come to George. How has clean cooking been addressed in the African Union Energy Efficiency Strategy and Action Plan? Maybe you can share more on how energy efficiency has been included in these clean cooking approaches.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss clean cooking in the framework of the African Union's Energy Efficiency Strategy and Action Plan, which is developed by AFREC with the support of the European Union's Technical Assistance Facility for Sustainable Energy. First of all, we all know that traditional cooking methods still remain prevalent across the continent, and they can have significant inefficiencies associated with them, even below 15% mark. And of course, we need not to forget all the adverse health effects that they cause. So through AFES, there is an aim to transition essentially to cleaner cooking solutions from traditional biomass-based methods. And this is crucial both for health and safety, environmental stewardship, economic development and social well-being, because we know that mostly women and children are affected adversely by traditional biomass cooking. At the same time, AFES is not promoting a single technology. It's promoting a range of technologies which each is tailored to different contexts and resource availabilities across Africa. We already discussed in this conference, especially yesterday, that there is no one solution to fit all countries and all regions in Africa. So we also acknowledge the fact that in many areas we will need to employ strategies that use multi-fuels in order to address the actual needs of the population there. Further to that, the strategy also promotes the importance of minimum energy performance standards and energy labels for clean cooking appliances towards a more efficient future. Also, we need to highlight here that one very important aspect of clean cooking, apart from the end use, is how you prepare the fuel that you utilize. For example, particularly for charcoal production, traditional methods can have efficiencies, very low efficiencies, down to 10 to 20%. If you use modern technologies for charcoal production, you can increase that up to 40%. And if you couple that with an advanced biomass cooker, the efficiency goes really up. And it can be a first step in the path towards probably in the long term of providing electric cooking to all, utilizing renewable electricity. So I want to highlight again that the African Union's Energy Efficiency Strategy and Action Plan focuses on advancing energy efficient solutions for clean cooking, but it does not touch upon how to develop strategies for the clean cooking transition. This aspect is analyzed by different publications of AFREC, like the one that's under consultation and was made public last week. And also, I want to highlight that the new activity of AFREC, with the support of the African Development Bank in developing the African Union's energy transition strategy, will further delve into aspects capitalizing on synergies between clean cooking, agriculture, and electricity access, trying to make a step forward in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me come to Professor Da Silva. And Professor, you've had a big experience witnessing Brazil transition to efficient clean cooking, and you are also now playing an active role in driving forward the clean cooking agenda, both in Kenya and Uganda. What lessons have you learned from the Latin American side that can support East Africa or even Africa in their journey to universal clean cooking?
Thank you very much. What we actually are doing is, as a strategy, is to listen to the people who are affected by that. When you mention gender, and I see here 3 ladies in this panel, I also rejoice, because we have been doing county energy plan. We have done for Narok and also for Makueni. And when you do focal point discussions and you ask the men, you have any problem getting safe water? No. Do you have a problem getting charcoal or firewood? No. Because the man, you know, by culture, by tradition, he is served by madame, who gets the water, gets the beans, and also gets the fuel to cook the beans. So when you ask them, then they give you meaningful stories saying, look, we don't have safe water, have to pick it from such and such a place, you know, and then this is slippery, and that jerry can with 20 liters is very heavy. You see, so once you have that knowledge, the reality, the true thing, then you can intervene. How do you intervene? The word is capacity building. You have to train people. And train people my age, no way, that's a waste of money. You train young people, yes, because they will be here tomorrow. So in Strathmore University, we have a Bachelor of Science, Electrical Electronic Engineering. What did we do last year? We say, let's mainstream P for planet. So lawyers, actuarialists, business people, IT people, and engineers also are now learning stuff regarding to solar energy. In fact, they call me Kamawa Solar. Because, you know, we are training our students undergrad how to design, install, and maintain this, a cook stove. When I was in Uganda, this is now, almost 20 years ago, I had a head of energy from GIZ. By the way, GIZ has been my good friend for so long. Yes, we need to do some more things, Brazil and Kenya, but this is another story. Yes, but you see, what happens is that we built what we called the house of smart cooking in Africa. PEMS, have you heard of PEMS? PEMS, particle emission measurement system. You put the hood on top of the cook stove, and there is a computer there with some nice gadgets, and you find out whether you should allow your wife will use that stuff or not, you see? Yeah, so this is what when I was there was a center, we started a center there called CREEC, Center for Research in Energy and Energy Conservation, isn't it? Now, coming here, Kird say, we need to help people with the cook stove quality and the standards. I told them, there is one already there, go copy and paste, and this they did. They copied and pasted. Our region is more or less similar, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, what else? Burundi also, Yeah, so they need it, and what I say is capacity building, train them, and whatever price, train them, because it's cheap. Thank you.
Thank you for your passion in this subject. I want to come to...
I have to mention also United Nations, because I'm working with them to create green jobs for the youth. Yeah, and then I told them I'm going to let them know that we are on that.
Thank you. I want to come to Zia, and this is something on standards and labeling. In addition to ensuring affordable access to cleaner and modern cooking solutions, efficiency will be critical to bring long-term sustainability. So the question is, how can standards and labeling support increased awareness of and access to clean cooking solutions?
Okay. According to the IEA's report about clean cooking access, so currently, China has an access rate of 87% of clean cooking. And in the past decade, China is providing 2% of clean cooking to additional persons without access to clean cooking. And also, China has showed an accelerated shift to electric cooking. So I think maybe energy efficiency standards and labeling programs play important roles in making this happen. On one hand, I think maybe energy efficiency standards force the elimination of inefficient products from the market. And also it supports for bulk procurement, and also stimulates the technology adoption, and also scale up the production and lower the price of high energy efficiency and good quality cookers. Thus, we can ensure the availability and affordability. In China, we have the gas cookers and the rice cookers have been covered by labeling programs since 2009 and 2010. For example, maybe for the rice cooker, the maps has been increased by 10% compared to the last version. And also for the gas cooker, the number of grade 1 models has accounting for 75% in the market, so it's very useful. And on the other hand, China Energy Labeling Program is the most well-known label in China. It helps the consumers to choose energy efficiency products by providing multiple information. We have introduced the QR code to the labeling program in 2016. It can provide not only the energy efficiency information, but also the annual energy consumption, the emission reduction compared to similar products, and some other performance indicators. So we think maybe relying on the QR code and the information platform, we can carry out some online research on consumer needs and also the barriers of electrification, and also we can carry out some promotion activities to enhance the awareness of consumers, to help them to understanding the health and environmental benefits about clean cooking. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Of course, I notice we have extended our timing, and I know there's some pressure for others to come in, but I want to give 30 seconds for a wrapping statement to each of you, and I want to reverse the order. I start with the professor. What more could governments do to support clean cooking?
Okay, 30 seconds, and this is a
30
challenge,
seconds,
yes. But I would say I need to work with this gentleman here, Africa. I need to work with Madame on quality. She can, you know, in China, quality. The other day we did a focal discussion with the people from Akweni, ladies, and then one lady stood up and said, see, I bought my cook stove, it was marvelous. But it was 3 weeks ago. Now it is broken, and I don't have money to replace it. Can you imagine? This is quality. So we cannot allow that kind of thing. So we say we work with the Kirdi because they already have the PEMs. We install the things for them. So 30 seconds is too short, but that is it. I say capacity building, working together. Synergy is a place where 1 + 1 can be 200. So we will show you.
George.
Well, 30 seconds. I want to take a step back and say that clean cooking, of course, is a target, but it's not the only target for the communities that are in need of such solutions. We need to take a step back and see that they also need electricity, they also need food, they also need sanitation, and many times we need to synergize, we need to combine, and we need to integrate. You can get a solar cooker, a biomass, an advanced biomass solar cooker equipped with a Peltier element providing tier 1 electricity to the household for charging a mobile phone and having a couple of rechargeable lights so that people can get outside of the statistic of having no access to electricity, and this can happen in the short term. You can support biogas solutions in remote communities to support their mini-grids for extended service, while at the same time providing clean fuel for clean cooking, and also a fuel for appliances and devices for agriculture or anything else. So my contribution in this last question is we need to capitalize on nexus thinking. We need to see how to best optimize resources, costs, and everything, and not just focus on the very single aspect of clean cooking, of rural electrification, of agricultural sustainability, and so on. We need, at the end of the day, to eradicate poverty for the people, which is the primary SDG. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zia, what more could government do to support clean cooking?
Sorry. For me?
Yes, yes. In your view, what do you think government needs to do to support access to clean cooking?
What do you think of the policy?
Yeah?
Government needs to do. I think maybe clean cooking is not only a question of technical. So the strong policy commitment and dedicated public funding is very important. And in addition to this, I think maybe in addition to standards and labeling, I think maybe investment of financial projects are very important. And also the awareness and education is also plays an important role maybe. And also in China, maybe the government is considering to carry out some pilot projects about fully electrification new buildings, and also to carry out some pilot project about renovation of electrification, renovation of all the buildings.
Thank you. And finally, another piece, Dr. Faith, what more could the government do to support clean cooking?
I'll respond from the perspective of what Kenya has gone through in reaching where we are. I believe we have made good progress in our clean cooking journey, and I would just like to encourage countries which have not yet initiated their journey towards clean cooking to learn from others who already have documents developed. For example, we have a lot of information that studies that have been conducted prior to developing the strategy. So I encourage governments to learn from each other so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and such a great passion from the panelists. I wish we had more time. But audience, we appreciate listening to this discussion. Can we give a round of applause to the panelists? And thank you once again. And we can stop it at that. If we had more time, we would have come back to you to also hear your perspectives. Yes, yes. So the panelists can take a photo here as we transition to the next panel. Someone can help us do that.
Yeah, the gentleman is coming. Yes. Good, he says. Cheese or Chinese.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and be blessed.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Nobody thanks the moderator.
Thank you very much for staying on, and we're hoping to have another very engaging session in the next 2 minutes. So we'll give our support staff about a minute to prepare, and then I'll call upon the panelists on stage so that we can quickly transition on to the next session. The next session is on, rather the title of the event is Achieving Universal Access to Efficient Clean Cooking. As the two opening speakers mentioned today when we started, I think from the IEA Director General, he mentioned something about replication, so understanding what works, what doesn't work, and translating to other areas. So that's one of the areas that we really want to touch on. So what is the congruence of energy efficiency and clean cooking? And the Deputy President of Kenya mentioned something to do with integrating energy efficiency in all the programs that we're doing, for the main reason that we have limited resources and we need to make the best use of these resources. So again, that will be another important discussion that we have to talk about, obviously, because we only have 7 more years to meet the SDGs, but the financing that we are getting is quite limited, and other resources as well as technology, and everything else that surrounds that. All right, 1 minute. All right. I think coming from a lot of the events and the convenings, like for example, COP28, where there was a huge commitment to double energy efficiency improvements by 2030, I think this is a good discussion, and I think sort of doubling down the discussion on clean cooking as one of the areas that we can focus on to achieve that target is really useful. The whole idea is to cut costs and to cut emissions, which I think is rightfully well put. So I wanted to paint the basic picture before we start the session, which is why clean cooking is sort of a new topic which is gaining a lot of traction. I think when it comes to cooking at a household level, and that's what I want this session to be, it's very specific and giving the examples from a very practical and tangible level of what we are talking about. So from a household level, if you're cooking with whatever fuel energy that you choose, a lot of people care, or rather most people care about the cost of what they use as the fuel and what they use as the technology. And we sort of are continuously seeing electric, LPG, becoming very competitive and still fitting within the energy budget of households. And this is because of the efficiency gains that we're seeing, a lot of innovation around business models, innovation around financing, and then definitely that's a welcome sign, but we need to scale that up very quickly. In industry, quite similarly, a lot of industries have to continue efforts or improve their efficiency over time because the competitive edge is really how much you can get out of a single unit of energy or a single unit of electricity. So the industry which is able to get a lot out of that is sort of able to compete a lot in this new market, which is very, very price sensitive. And lastly, I think at the country and systems level, it makes a lot of sense to think about planning. What does it mean to forecast demand for a country, such as Benin or such as Rwanda? How do you make sure that what you're planning for actually puts in place or considers energy efficiency? So the appliances and the industries that you would be planning for 5 years ago or 10 years ago don't exist. They're more efficient, so you need to make sure that you're adapting your planning to all the gains that we are getting on energy efficiency. You need to make sure you're adapting to all the gains you're getting on efficiency at appliance level for households or productive users, etc. So that's one area that we need to continue contributing to so that we don't end up with oversized assets or very expensive assets where the utilization is very low, translating to very high cost of energy, translating to low consumption, translating to high tariffs that are meant to compensate for the low consumption. And all that loop really is not helping development of countries. So there's a huge, huge relationship right from the country level all the way down to the household level when it comes to energy efficiency and clean cooking, among other applications of energy. Now that I see we are ready, I will introduce my panel and ask them to come to the front so that we can start the session. I'll call out first Anne Washera Wambugu, the head of electrification and energy access, UNESCO and UNESCO chair at Strathmore. Welcome, Anne. Next is Luke Tosu, the principal energy efficiency and investment officer at the African Development Bank. Next, we have Bishal Thapa, is a senior director at CLASP. Thank you for joining us. Next is Zeph Kivungi, the manager of partnerships at the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GIAP. We have Sophie Odupoi, the head of public affairs at Coco Networks. And last but not least, Geoffrey Kimiti Mboro, the co-founder of PowerPay Limited. So have a clap for panelists as they make their way to the stage. As you can see, it's a very good mix of private sector, development, finance institutions, non-government organizations. So we're hoping to really have a conversation that brings these key elements, and maybe next time we'll make sure we have government as well, bring these key elements together and try to tie down what it means to combine or to integrate energy efficiency in clean cooking and the other way around, clean cooking in energy efficiency efforts. My name is Dennis Nderitu. I work with the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. I will be the moderator for the session. I know there's no Q&A session, but I will welcome any questions that you can write and give to John, who's seated at the front, and then he will sift through the questions, and maybe we'll have 1 or 2 or 3 questions at the end. We'll retain about 7 or 10 minutes for that. But yeah, thank you everyone for making time, and welcome to the session. I think I'm supposed to sit, but I'll probably just stand. I like standing much better. I would like to give a chance to all the panelists to introduce themselves, share what their organizations are doing, either in energy efficiency, if that's the leading aspect of the work that you do, or on clean cooking, if that is the leading aspect, or both, where there's some integration of both in the organization. And I'll ask to start from here, and then we can just go down the list.
Okay. Hello, good morning. Thank you, Dennis. So by introduction, Sophia Dupuy, I'm from Cocoa Networks. And Cocoa Networks is the world's first company that has developed a scalable solution to enable households to transition to clean cooking through the use of bioethanol. So we've managed to marry technology and carbon markets and have enabled over 1.25 million households to transition to bioethanol for clean cooking in Kenya since 2019. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zeph Kibungi. How do we work this?
As Zeph sorts out, we'll go to Bishal.
Hello. Okay, great. Thank you, Dennis, for the question, and thanks for this opportunity to reflect on the work that CLASP has done in this sector. We touch both energy efficiency and clean cooking. In specific, our work has touched 3 sort of electrical appliances on cooking: induction hobs, rice cookers, and electric pressure cookers. So in that sense, it's not just about clean cooking, but it's also about electrification of the kitchen, if you could ask that. Our work on integrating energy efficiency into clean cooking is basically sort of follows the whole evolution pathway from product to policy to deployment in the markets. We do a lot of work around early stage commercialization through challenges and other programs that enable these technologies to reach the market. We develop test methods and standards that enable policies to be then subsequently developed, which is the 3rd aspect. And then the 4th piece is that we work quite extensively on market transformation that touches on finance, consumer preference, and also market supply chain. So through our work, we're essentially hoping to catalyze all of the stakeholders that are important to solving this problem in energy access and clean cooking. Thank you. You too.
Oh, okay. So my name is Anna Sheva. I think some of you might have seen me in yesterday's session. I work for Stratford University for the UNESCO chair. Okay, for the UNESCO chair for climate change resilience and sustainability. That's him. So what we're doing when it comes to cooking, so number one, there is a quality study that we've done for modern energy cooking services on the appliance ecosystem, what the quality ecosystem looks like, and the breakage points and other issues that can be found. I think hopefully that should be out soon. Then there is testing of e-cooking, let's say cooking tests. So we've done quite a number of cooking tests to try and quantify the fuel costs for each, different types of foods. And then in terms of efficiency, we set out to develop a solar cooker a number of years ago. And then we realized that, after 2 years, was after 1 year or something like that, a number of solar e-cookers had come into the market. So what we've been doing since then has been trying to make the current e-cookers, solar e-cookers that we have in the market, a lot more efficient. So there's been a number of tests that we've been doing and development of the thermal technical stuff since then. So that's, I think, a summary of what we're doing on the cooking front.
Okay, good morning everyone. Luc Tossou from the Energy Efficiency and Clean Cooking Division at the African Development Bank. And thank you very much for inviting me to join this panel on clean cooking, policy and the tools for mainstreaming clean cooking. And as you know, clean cooking is very important for the bank. Many interventions here yesterday and today have alluded to the important role or the leading role that the African Development Bank is playing for the delivery of clean cooking solution. So just to mention what we are doing, I said the clean cooking, energy efficiency and clean cooking division, it's because energy efficiency and clean cooking are very linked. And what we are doing, what I can say for the work of the bank in the clean cooking space is that the bank has a clear focus on, let's say, higher tier energy clean cooking solutions. So which are, let's say, mainly concentrated around ethanol, LPG, electricity, and biogas, which are known to be, let's say, the best performing solutions, and also most likely the ones that that can help in achieving the environmental and health benefit. So this means practically that for when the bank is working on a lending instrument for countries, the efficiency of the technology of the cooking stoves are, let's say, the key eligibility criteria for that program to be run. And doing that, building on the lesson learned and the results or findings of the extensive works that have been, MEX organizations like MEX or CLASP or other organizations are doing. So that's what we are doing. But having said that, I need to point out that it doesn't mean that the bank is not neglecting like the lower tier energy clean cooking solutions. Depending on the context and if it's necessary, the bank will also provide its support for the lower tier clean cooking stoves. Just to give you an example, the bank had a lending program with Somalia and energy access for electricity access. And within that wider electricity access program, the government of Somalia has integrated a very small component to disseminate 25,000 clean cooking stoves using charcoal or woods. So in conclusion, it's important to keep in mind that the bank will not, let's say, put its resources in a clean cooking project or program unless it is clearly demonstrated that there is a gain in efficiency with that technology when you compare to the baseline situation. Thank you.
Good morning. Is it morning, afternoon? Afternoon to you. My name is Jeffrey Kimiti. I'm a co-founder at PowerPay. We also known as Green Innovation Ventures. And our job is basically to provide digitalization so that energy consumption is visible beyond the meter. But that involves as well making sure that devices can be controlled And energy efficiency has a lot to do with managing your devices, being able to control them, determining when they run, and also providing access to credit requires that lenders are able to manage devices and have the ability to control, switch them on, switch them off. So we provide that digitalization that enables the sector to, manage credit, finance at a micro level for cooking devices, and also ensure visibility beyond the meter. And that's also useful for utilities to be able to see demand. So we hope that utilities will consume our demand, whether they are mini grids or utilities at a national level, so that they can better plan for growing demand and they can see it, and they can be able to develop tariffs probably to incentivize certain uses of electricity as well. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that works. It seems technology just won. Okay, my name is Zef Kivungi. I'm with the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. So I just take this from two perspectives: why we exist as an alliance and what we are doing towards this, because then the two of them start to make more sense. An alliance because we are not seeing ourselves as doing individual programs as an organization, but bringing together all the players that have been very busy and actively investing in the energy access area. Within Africa, we are working in countries that have quite a bit of scarcity of modern access in itself, which means energy efficiency is at the core of whatever we do to make sure that we are doing a lot more with a little that becomes available. And in the specific area of cooking, it is electric cooking, creating an ecosystem in which everyone works together with everyone else, just sticking to what they are good at. And I have to point out the Global Electric Cooking Coalition that has come together from a number of partners, and I would say literally everyone involved in electric cooking is a member of that coalition, but the founding partners are GIAP, NDEV, MEX, and SE for All. And here is to make sure that we are giving this as a real option that makes all the sense with the data that is required to back that as an option, supporting the systemic changes that we expect to see in an energy system that we are consuming a lot more renewable energy and such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zef, and thank you very much, panelists, and welcome. We'll get straight to the practical things, and I want to start with the technology bit. Bishal, I'll start with you. CLASP, having had a lot of experience working with appliances, with performance standards, how do you make sure that the provision of access to appliances is being integrated with really high efficiency equipment that performs to the right standards as you've evaluated and decided these are the right standards? And what sort of ecosystem do you need to build around that to make it scale? So maybe telling us from the experiences you've had and the lessons that you've learned.
Great. Thanks for the question. I think, when we look at clean cooking and integrate energy efficiency in there, one of the ways that we can enhance its access is by integrating energy efficiency more specifically through policies and standards that enable these products to come to market. One of the best examples for that is from India, for example. India has made tremendous gains over the last decade or so in terms of transforming its cooking from traditional fuels to first LPGs and then second now to making the progress on electric cooking. So in LPG, for instance, over the last few years, 85% of all households have access to that form of cooking. It's also come at a tremendous cost. There is a $1.5 billion outlay in the last fiscal year to financing that. So in response to that kind of cost, in response to that kind of vulnerability, India has responded by with a campaign that's called Go Electric, in which the centerpiece is around electric cooking. Last year in March, India launched standards and labeling around induction hobs, which basically provides from 1 to 5 star, give consumers an indication of the type of energy efficiency that is inbuilt into it. In general, those kind of standards not only improve the quality of the product that is out there, but make it easier to finance, enhance customers' acceptance of those products, and in a sense begin to change consumer preferences around those products. So while I'm drawing from the examples of India, it is in line with CLASP's overall strategy, where we take sort of a 4-gated approach, if you might think of that, as to how we begin to promote that. The first is looking at government awareness. How do we get governments aware of the need to bring standards into these kinds of products? Second is, how do we create the enabling environments? How do we create those policies? How do we create those standards? How do we integrate them? Third is, how do we enable financing to flow through these products? And then the fourth is also getting consumers to change and recognize their preference, so that there is recognition of health issues, there's recognition of costs, and being able to put it in the right perspective in terms of cost and health benefits, etc. One of the lessons that we've seen is that these standards make it very useful, the integration of these energy efficient standards make it very useful to be able to roll out large publicly financed programs. Again, to draw from the example of India, when it made the transformation on using LPG as a cooking fuel, one of the successes was the fact that it had a labeling program on LPG stoves. So that was essential. It allowed that to serve as the basis. In a recent example where they are looking at a program, well, not on cooking, but on a similar product, to look at 10 million household solar program, one of the things that they have used is a labeling program around solar inverters that form the basis of it, along with a labeling program for solar panels that enable consumers to make the right choices on the types of products they're doing and on which these programs can be built. Similarly, we expect, and we are working with governments, not just in India, but around the world, to try to shape what some of these market transformations can be in terms of using these labels and standards to roll out programs that helps operationalize some of these issues.
Thank you very much. And thank you for listing out those 4 critical pillars. I'll probably, as we go through the tech, I'll probably go through each. Another experience, maybe Anne, from the work that you've mentioned you've done, what are the key lessons about integrating cooking or any other appliance with energy efficiency? And what does it actually mean for the final user?
Okay, so number one, I think there's capital costs. Sorry. There's normally, so a lot of discussions we have revolve around the capital costs, and every now and then we jump into the operating cost, which is the cost of electricity. And the thing that it's important that we all remember is that if you're giving someone a new appliance, they know how much firewood costs, but they have to go by your, by our, we're telling them it's cheap to use electricity. So their expectation has to meet reality. Otherwise, you get a situation where if you told someone it will cost you 300 Kenya shillings, and then they find out it's 500 Kenya shillings, in your head it's a very small margin, but to them, someone lied to me. And that's been a massive problem in other technologies too, the expectation versus the reality. Which brings me to how we do quality, how we work on quality, which is thank you.
So there's the supply chains. I like talking about supply chains, that because quality is really generally you import, and then there's this entire supply chain that things go through. And at each point, there's different institutions that are supposed to catch if something is poor quality. And I've found that the quality ecosystem likes, prefers, let me say, especially coming from the formal component of it, we prefer to do things with what we think people, where we think people make purchases. That's to say, we want to say, okay, if you want a good quality product, go to the supermarket. If you want a good quality product, go to X place, which is kind of the opposite of what we should do, which is we should actually figure out where people are making their purchases from. And if, for example, they're making their purchases from the electrical shop near them, we should actually meet them there. So my thinking when it comes to, and our thinking when it comes to the quality ecosystem around any appliances, and especially energy efficient appliances, given that a good chunk of them, it's not really true these days, but in the past it used to be that there was a small price margin on top of the less efficient ones. It's important that we meet users where they're at. Yes, so that would be, I think, my take on this.
Thank you very much. As we continue understanding our customer more before we get to the big solutions, I wanted Sophie to come in. You work in an actual company that delivers clean cooking. What is the gain of really thinking about or mainstreaming energy efficiency? Is there a gain that is good enough that it makes sense for you to concentrate on energy efficiency, or is it so marginal that it doesn't really make sense? Mm-hmm. And maybe this is for anyone who's in the space actually of delivering the solution. Why should they care about energy efficiency when they're doing clean cooking?
Okay. Thank you, Dennis, for that question. When we were developing our solution, it took us 5 years to do R&D. And part of the R&D involved us recruiting customers. So we observed how people were buying charcoal, how they were using charcoal, how they were using firewood, how they were using kerosene. And obviously, energy inefficiency was one of the issues that arose. I mean, in addition to affordability, accessibility, a lot of the areas that solutions have addressed. So when we were developing our solution, we knew we had to factor in energy efficiency. When you're talking about people for whom clean solutions are not even an option, yeah, when they're thinking about the fuel they will buy to cook their food, because affordability is such an issue, you don't even think about energy efficiency. So we knew we needed to integrate energy efficiency. So when you look at the cook stove that we developed, we actually have energy efficiency front and center. When you look at first, it's a 2-burner cook stove, so a household is able to cook 2 meals at the same time. When you look at how we focus the fire to be able to concentrate on cooking, we minimize loss to the environment. So we actually thought about that. So that when a household is looking at how the value they're getting out of the money they're using, they actually can speak to energy efficiency. So that was one. 2 was ethanol. So when you look at ethanol, the ethanol that we use is technical ethanol. So we don't use beverage grade ethanol. And the ethanol that we use is sourced as a byproduct of molasses from the sugar milling process. So previously there was no use for technical alcohol. Most of the sugar millers tended to throw away the technical alcohol. So we have repurposed. We are using millions of liters every month, and we mix the ethanol with water. So it's about 93% ethanol and about 7%. So even that mix, we've made sure that it's optimal, that it suits our device. So our device is calibrated to use the ethanol that has that mix. So that way we are able to deliver optimal use. So it's not about someone seeking to use 99% ethanol. The more ethanol you use, the less efficient it is. And the more water you add into the ethanol, the less efficient the cook stove is. So for us, we've made sure that it's optimal, and that as a household uses our cook stove, our ethanol, they're able to see value. I think the last one is the fact that we've made sure that the solution is affordable. You can't talk about energy efficiency if the household is not actually able to afford. So our cook stove retails at $10, and as I've said, we've managed to marry technology and carbon markets. So we use carbon markets to be able to subsidize the cook stove, and we are also able to subsidize the ethanol, so that, as previous speakers have spoken, it's not only about acquiring the cook stove, but also subsequently buying the ethanol month on month. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are continuing to understand the customer even better, so that anything we talk about on the solutions is quite aligned to that. And the last question on the technology will be to you, Geoffrey. You mentioned IoT, which I feel is really important technology, but I'm wondering, outside electric cooking, which is some a new market that is growing, how can Sophie use IoT for ethanol? How can Anne use IoT for biomass, clean, improved cook stoves? Is this a solution that is helping us on the energy efficiency front? And if it is, how is it geared to do that?
Yeah, so I'll say currently we are very much focused on electric cooking and electric appliances, I'd say. Talk about household, could be at a business level. But I think the value that we see with IoT is also moving this beyond, because say labeling and standards, these are things that are done, at an institutional level by the government, by other players in the market. But IoT moves that discussion to the consumer level, because one of the things we do with our IoT is provide a user with a platform on mobile where they are able to interact with their consumption data. And that is very important, because that then means that at a personal level, I'm able to decide what equipment I'm going to keep using, what equipment I need to get rid of, what I need to replace. And I believe that when that power is given to the consumer, I don't think there's anything as powerful as a consumer when it comes to changing, what people are selling in the market. Because the consumer will say, I'm only going to buy this because I can see I'm saving energy in this way, because they can see I used 20 kilowatt hours. This cost me maybe 600 shillings. I would have paid 2,000 shillings for charcoal, so therefore I am moving to this form of cooking permanently. And so that decision making empowers the consumer to be able to say, this is how my energy consumption looks like now. I need to change it like this because my budget is this. And so that, I believe, is extremely empowering. So I believe we need to actually link labeling and standards and then to consumer feedback, so that then it becomes a...
I'll come to Luke on the AFDB, and two questions for you, given the understanding we've got from the previous speakers on the know your customer bit. In terms of the utility scale, because I know the AFDB deals at the utility and at the smaller scale, what does it mean to embed clean cooking? What does it mean to make sure that is integrated with energy efficiency? And from an AFDB standpoint, given that you're sort of one of the major funders of energy efficiency, clean cooking, etc., what do you think is what have you learned, and what do you think is needed to really amplify this? Because we need to get more than 800 million people electrified. We need to get more than 1 billion people using clean energy for cooking. What do we need to do from that macro level?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Dennis, for this for that question. So to answer your question, I would like to, let's say, touch on 2 points. The first one, I think the previous speakers have already alluded to the importance of having, let's say, adopting and introducing quality standard and minimum energy performance standard for clean cooking appliances, and I mean, and also let's say establish an energy efficiency labeling scheme to inform the consumer on the efficiency of the clean cooking stove that they are acquiring. So I think it's one important point, and I think it has proved to have been really helpful for other appliances, let's say cooling appliances, ACs and refrigerators, you have adopted a minimum energy performance standard for this equipment, and it's helping. It's really helping to sort of shift the demand toward the best performing, the very most efficient ones. Now, from the bank perspective, like when, as I mentioned, when we are working on a clean cooking project, I mean, what I'm saying here is also applies to other appliances. So when we are working on financing a program on clean cooking solution, we make sure that we really target, let's say, the best-in-class solutions with the highest technologies. As I mentioned, we really want to shift the demand toward and increase the market penetration of these most efficient one. The second point I would like to mention here is related to maybe the approach, the design approach that we use for our energy access or electrification program. What we've done so far in most instances traditionally is that when you look at energy access project, the project just is, let's say, limited to the meter. So just connecting the household to the grid. Now I think it will be really important to start doing it another way by, let's say, integrating clean cooking stoves in the project. To have it as a component, clean cooking solutions, or even other appliances. So to have it as a solution, and then as a component of that wider energy access project, so that we ensure that we go beyond the meter. And I think it's something which is really important, and when we engaging with countries, that's the sort of message that we try to convey. And the bank is also, has even, let's say, started practicing this. There was, there is a project, an energy access project in Kenya here, which is called the Last Mile Connectivity Project. And the bank is working with a KPLC, since the project is implemented by KPLC. So working with a KPLC to design an electric cooking project, that will be integrated in this last mile connectivity project as a component of that program. So I think it's something which is really important if we really want to sort of accelerate the transition to clean cooking stove, and that's what we encourage countries' governments to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a very interesting idea to bundle a connection with other services, as cooking, etc. And I'll be coming back to you to ask you about the $2 billion US commitment made last week in Paris by the bank, and how Sophie can tap into that. But yeah, now to Zeph, probably a similar question is, how should finance be structured so that we can get this bundled connection, so that we can get cooking not as an isolated thing, but is part of a connection, or is part of a service delivery that households are getting? And what is the role of, for affordability, I think, what is the role of carbon markets when it comes to clean cooking, and how do you ensure that carbon finance coming in is not really saying, you know, leave out the energy efficiency bits, but you still need to embed all that to make sure that you're leveraging the limited climate finance to achieve a lot of impact?
Right. Thanks, Dennis. I'll use two words: scale and systemic. And one of the ways to look at scale is, people will say the data is there. Our partners, MEX, for example, have a lot of data. We have universities and others who have a lot of data. And then now we know what the problem is, but we are still not scaling. then you will hear other barriers start getting introduced as to why we are not going to scale. And you hear things like the cost of electricity is prohibitive. You hear things like the cost of appliance is prohibitive. You hear things like, they lied to me, they told me it's this way, but we are realizing the rest. So we've had a lot of disjointed efforts, a lot of people doing a lot of good work, but everybody does their piece. They find out the knowledge, and that's it. You know where to find class, you know how to get the quality, and that's it. And then you have business people saying, we wish we could find the capital to get to scale. And you start to listen to cases of cocoa, and you're being told, they're just outliers. I don't think anybody else can do the same. So why are we not having a systemic change from this? So if we stepped back and looked at the energy supply industry or electricity supply industry, you start to say, oh, Kenya has very green electricity, but the tariffs are prohibitive. Question is, why? Because a lot of this electricity is getting generated and not getting delivered. And I want to stick to just electricity for this, and I think it can apply to the rest of this. So why is it expensive? Because we have very good regulations that allow a lot of private sector people to come and say, I will set up a power plant as long as you're going to pay me. Good. So Kenya Power has to pay those bills whether or not they sold the electricity. So they will combine the electricity of the steam that was flared in geothermal plants and not sold, together with the diesel power plant they had to set up because a lot of people needed the power when it was not available, etc., etc. So to get to scale, it will require us then to say, what is it we can do through the spectrum? I see things like electric cooking, making sure it's efficient appliances, it is cost effective to the final consumer, and make those in the millions rather than just thousands, because we have a lot of pilots everywhere, somebody doing 10,000 EPCs, 5,000 EPCs. Can we find a program that brings in government, private sector, carbon markets, and all these others to say, I will take just this piece, so that by the close of this period, we are talking 2-3 million appliances out there. What that does is it evades the revenue to the utility, which then starts to drive costs systemically, not by regulation, by using a stick, forcing them to, because somebody will still have to pay for this. And I see things like carbon markets being quite an effective way to say, since we will make sure we're using data, we will make sure that it's very transparent, why don't you advance some of what you're going to be earning later now, so that the capital is available at scale. And now we start talking about 1 million appliances at a go, and that starts to change the entire system, the perceptions as to this is not safe or this has this issue. It's not just 5 people, exclusivity being to them and saying we use electricity, but it's everybody is able to access this because every other person is using the same. So I would tie this to say, let's make sure that we are creating systemic programs rather than just projects trying to pilot yet again. Since we have very short time to cover this billion that are still dying literally, why don't we find ways to move from thousands to the millions? It will require utilities to be in the room, not as the person we like to throw stones at, but as a partner that is important to deliver this fuel which is needed in every household, and they have already done that, but people are not utilizing it for the same. Let's stop having this is a class program, it's an NDEV program, it's an SNB program, it's a so-and-so program. We are dealing with the same problem throughout the entire, and we are targeting the same people, and the problem is well known. Let's come together and say, I will just do the bit that I'm very good at. So CLASP, sit here. I will deal with technology and IoT issues, you come here. Carbon markets come here, and government is in the room to say, whatever you are doing here is in agreement with what we as a government are trying to do. An example would be, we have this program in Kenya where the government has said, stop using biomass in schools by 2025. Very good. And the same government had made sure there is electricity in nearly 90% of all schools in the country. And then they're saying we are going to be feeding 10 million. These are very good pieces coming together. But instead of having WFP there helping with the food, and I don't know who they are dealing with the technology, bring these things together and say, now we have a chance to do 10,000 schools at a go. What do we do? What technology exists? What exists in India that is not in Kenya? What has been seen in carbon markets to do such kind? Who would be willing to buy these credits? Is it Sweden? Is it through the public side, government to government, or is it the... Let's have those together. And then we say, now we have a serious market that can be captured at a go. Government is in support, technology suppliers are there, commercial people are ready to make the dollars. Why don't we then come up with something systemic in that sense? If we did that, I can guarantee you we can move this needle that has been going backwards to the end of the scale within a very short time, because we know everything, we understand everything, the technology exists, we are just not working together.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zeph. Just coming back to the title of the session, which was Scaling Up Policies and Tools. I want to underline tools there. So look, the question on the 2 billion plus the other facilities that the bank has on clean cooking that we should be aware of and how we can tap into those. And I would like Bishal to just come in and add any extra color on the India experience, because I think India's access, clean cooking, the growth curve is quite inspirational. Just add a bit of more color after look on how do we quickly leverage the amounts that the bank has. Look.
Yeah, thank you. So to talk about the amount of 2 billion that the bank has committed, I think let me try to explain how it works. What I want to say is the resources that the bank lends to countries are owned by the countries. So what I mean is it's up to the countries to decide, let's say that they want to prioritize clean cooking, and so use the money and put it on clean cooking project. So what I will simply say is that that amount, countries, government can have access to it, and also private sector can have access to it. Now, talking about government, let's say, for example, that the bank has a lending program of, say, 100 million to the energy sector for a country A. And so what the bank will tell the country or will recommend is maybe to say we take 10%, 15% or 20% of that money that we, let's say, dedicate to a small, we carve out a portion of that money for the purpose of clean cooking, a component of clean cooking that is integrated to that project. So the government can accept to say, yes, I want to do that, or I want to do that because, I mean, clean cooking is not a priority for me. What we've been, what we have observed so far, what I have observed so far is that when it comes to using resources that are located to the energy sector, there is a strong bias towards using those resources for projects in transmission, distribution, and electricity generation. I mean, when you ask a government to prioritize, that's where they put the priority. So what we say now is that we really need to ensure or make sure that energy efficiency or clean cooking and clean cooking are also given the same attention, the same priority when it comes to prioritizing projects on which you want to use the resources. So at least, even if you don't have a separate, let's say, standalone clean cooking project, you should systematically start having it as a component of this wider energy sector project. So that's one. By using that approach, yes, they can have access to these resources. And anyway, you can't use these resources if you don't have a project. You need a project. You need to have a program. And it's something we are really working on with government. For example, the bank has a program which is called the Energy Efficiency Market Development Program, which is financed by the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa. So it is a TA program that is run by the bank, and that allows the bank to use grant money to assist, let's say, government that say, I have a project for clean cooking, I need like a detailed feasibility study. We use that money to support the government in doing the detailed feasibility study that will lead to a concrete design clean cooking program. So that's running now. That government, the public sector can tap into this program to use the resources for the energy, for the clean cooking programs. The second aspect is the private sector. I mean, SEFA is a fund which is hosted by the bank, and that's, let's say, offers, provide concessional financing and grants for projects in the private sector. And the idea is to really work on strengthening, let's say, an African value chain for clean cooking. So it is there to support the private sector in their project regarding clean cooking. So these are two important aspects that I think I need to mention here when it comes to tools that are in which like stakeholders can tap in for clean cooking project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been made aware that we probably are running a bit out of time, but that was an important point to make, so that we are very aware where the funds are, where the money is, and how to tap into it. So I'm very sure, Luke, you'll be having a lot of people looking for you after this session so that they can get something.
A facility that I've omitted to mention, which is one that SEFA is working on, to have a clean cooking facility for the private sector, which is also basing on, let's say, leveraging carbon markets. So it's a facility that is there.
That's very, very exciting. I'll probably then ask everyone to take a minute in closing. The closing question was how to make sure that clean cooking and energy efficiency are well integrated as we go forward. Obviously, we've spoken about the benefits of integrating the two. It's all about expanding our impact with limited resources. It's all about saving the consumer so that the solutions are affordable, among other things. So what is everyone's last word? And I'll give everyone a minute to talk about it, starting from the private sector, because that's basically where we wanted to start every time now.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So I think for private sector, one is obviously government stepping up and being able to define energy efficiency so that we can measure how we are delivering on government expectations. The second one I would say is, because as private sector, when we develop, we then will put forward claims on energy efficiency on our solutions. I think it would be useful to get independent auditors sort of integrated into the audit process for carbon markets. So I think it's very useful for third parties to come in and verify and certify what the claims that we are making. So very much something aligning to like what Jeffrey is saying. You need some equipment that is external that comes to certify that. And lastly will be what Zeph sort of alluded to, when you're talking about looking beyond what you're offering within, let's say, one area. As Cocoa, we are looking to expand beyond Kenya. We know that this number that keeps being bandied around in terms of 1 billion, we are doing our part in terms of seeking to avail this solution to markets beyond Kenya, and towards this expansion will obviously be looking to other partners, and not only government, but also partners such as AFDB and also other players within the sector. So we look forward to the value that we can bring to other countries, not only in clean cooking, but also in energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. No, that's it.
Okay. So I would say We need to stop skirting around the issue. The issue is well known, well documented. Let's get ambitious programs. Just because it has not happened anywhere else historically does not mean it cannot happen. So I would say, let's have governments that are already leading the way by setting the strategies, be backed by the players in the space, whether it's knowledge, private sector, carbon markets. The second thing I'll mention is very specific to carbon markets. The fact that now we are talking about metered methodologies and all the technology suppliers can assure us when we say there has been real reduction in emission, we can measure that. We are not estimating or guesstimating, means that now somebody will actually be paying for a real asset. And the asset that comes out of clean cooking is way more than just an environmental issue. It is saving lives, literally. It is improving human development index. Let's have carbon markets at the center of this and look at it as a way of us saying it is give and take. Give me a good quality carbon asset. I will give you the capital. I will go use the carbon the way I want to use it. Please use it to do good, and I want to be there to make sure you're doing a good thing. Let's combine these two. I think it's a very good time for us to be able to operate at scale and across the continent. Thanks.
I'd like to offer my sort of closing thoughts, picking up on what my fellow panelist has said in terms of systemic change and scale, the need and his challenge and call for systemic change. I find that once you strip away all of this complexity around clean cooking, you just come to one sort of universal truth, which is it's really a reflection of the political economy. In the past, there's obviously been resource constraints, there's been absence of technology, but the decision makers in the political economy have, in effect, prioritized other needs over the needs of people who today lack access to energy and cooling. So it is fundamentally a political economy decision-making problem. And so now we have faced with an opportunity where we have technologies, we have financing, we have access to markets, we have new methods, new systems. But we got to take those and plug it directly into the political economy. We have to fundamentally challenge the decision-making in the political economy so that the interests of people who have lacked access is foremounted. And while that may be many, many, many different threads, one thread I could pull on, for example, is to challenge this narrative that energy efficiency leads to higher costs. It doesn't. And by invoking that historical bias, that energy efficiency leads to higher cost, is in some way a method of continuing a political economy decision that essentially prevents people from getting access. We need to challenge those narratives. We need to find ways. And if we play it directly into the political economy so that the needs of people are prioritized in terms of clean cooking and energy access, we have the opportunity to bring genuine systemic change.
Okay, sorry. So I think I'm going to add to what the previous two speakers have said, which is when it comes to technology, there is a tendency, if we're talking about efficiency, if we're talking about appliances or energy generation, to focus on the technological components. But one important thing we need to remember is that we build technology for people. So at the center of everything that we're doing, whether it's whatever stakeholders we're discussing, knowing the incentives of each of these stakeholders, because let me say, for example, the users, one assumption is normally that they would actually want to adopt something, and sometimes you actually need to convince people to do things that are in their best interest, despite the fact that it's in their best interest, and they should actually do it. So what are the incentives of each player, a clear map of the supply chain, who is doing what where, and how can we incentivize.
Okay, so on my side, what I would like to say as a closing remark is that I think for us to, going forward, it will be really important to sort of integrate energy efficiency strategies with clean cooking. That's the first point. The second point is that there is a need to change the approach by which we look at this sort of project. And the change needs to happen especially within these entities where the prioritization of project takes place, which means that what I think is important, even if it's not supposed, say within the government, or even if they think it's not possible to have a standalone project, I think it's really important to always include or consider or integrate a component covering clean cooking solutions in wider energy access, energy sector projects. So it's by doing it gradually that we will reach a large scale. Because I think the most important thing now is to, let's say, scale up the initiatives that we are having now. We've had a lot of pilot projects, small projects. I think the important step that we need to take is really to scale up this initiative to make sure that we reach a large number of beneficiaries as possible. And for that, I think the bank is there to support with all these instruments. I know I have not mentioned all of them, but I think I tried to mention the key instrument that I wanted to mention. I think we can continue the discussion later. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to echo what my colleagues here have said. One of them being that energy is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And so it's really important that energy access really focuses on what utilization is happening beyond, the energy, projects that are going on, and how that is actually transforming the lives of people who are using that energy in the way they use it, whether it's for basic needs like cooking, water pumping and things like those that help them to be productive, among others. So it's really important that we are able to, get beyond just, counting connections to looking at beyond the meter impact and utilization. And then, of course, there is a systematic, change that we need. And central to that is having the kind of data that our IoT provides sits at the intersection of various uses. So this is useful to utilities for demand side management, useful to lenders for credit management, useful to carbon finance for emission reduction measurement. So I'd like to say that that's how we see the energy sector scaling, is being able to think systematically and creating solutions that are able to provide value to multiple stakeholders that will enable the sector to scale. And so definitely there is no way we are going to scale working alone. Manufacturers need to be able to use the technology, utilities need to use it. So everybody needs to be part of that ecosystem, in my view, for that, for energy, for clean cooking to scale, and of course efficiency, which means empowering people with data to make the right decisions, about energy management and consumption. So that is my closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The panelists, I think not my takeaway, but summary statement is that clean cooking has always been integrating energy efficiency, even if it hasn't been mentioned directly in the clean cooking space. But all that we need to do is go into scale. We've been doing it at such a small level, that it doesn't ladder up very strongly to country energy efficiency programs or plans. So let's do it at a bigger scale, and I think the solution has been mentioned by the experts here, how to make sure we are consolidating, how to make sure we're integrating a lot of the efforts, how to make sure we are doing the right job on the advocacy front, and lastly, making sure that customer still remains at the center of this whole discussion, because that's really our demand point, and we should make sure we are giving them solutions. So that being said, we've come to the end of our panel. Very grateful to our audience for listening. There was one question, and I'll ask the person who asked or who wrote the question to follow up with either Bishal or Anne, because it's really specific to testing and what that means in the outside world, outside a lab setting. I think the answer will be quite long for that. So thank you very much. We really appreciate. The next session is starting in the next few minutes at 1 p.m. on renovating buildings to raise energy performance. So anyone who's staying around for that, you're free to stay around and wait for it. But for anyone who wants to go for lunch, I don't know, the options are quite hard there. Either you're going for lunch or you're staying for that session. But thank you very much, and we really do appreciate a hand for our panelists, please.